I found out about my own demotion from a calendar invite. Strategic realignment discussion, mandatory attendance. No agenda, no pre-brief, just a 7 a.m. slot in the executive boardroom, which was unusual because I was usually the one scheduling those meetings. When I walked in, my nameplate was gone. That's how I knew it wasn't a discussion. Before I tell you what happened next, let me say this. If you've ever been quietly pushed aside, talked over, or told to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable, this story is for you. And if stories about reclaiming power without losing your composure matter to you, smash the like and subscribe button. It's free, but it tells me you understand what it costs to stay silent and what it means to finally stop. Ethan was already seated at the head of the table, flipping through a leather binder he didn't need. Martin sat to his right, composed, neutral. My father stood near the window, back to us, staring down at the parking lot like he was considering weather patterns instead of restructuring his daughter out of power. "Morning," I said, taking an empty chair halfway down the table. Ethan glanced up. "That one's temporary." I didn't move. "Temporary?" I repeated. "We're streamlining," Martin added. "Seats reflect reporting lines." I let that settle. "Who do I report to now?" I asked. Ethan closed the binder. "Me." There it was. No easing into it, no pretense of collaboration. My father turned finally. "It's not personal." That line always meant it was. "For 5 years, logistics has operated as an independent division. And it will continue to," Ethan said quickly, "operationally. But strategically," Martin cut in, "we need cohesion." "Cohesion," I repeated. Ethan leaned back. "Claire, you're excellent at execution, no one disputes that. But growth requires a different skill set. And I don't have it." He smiled thinly. "It's not your lane." I looked at my father. He didn't contradict him. That was the moment. Not the demotion, not the power shift. The silence. I nodded once. Understood. But that wasn't the end of it. It was the beginning of something they didn't recognize. I didn't join the company because I couldn't get hired elsewhere. I left a consulting firm at 26 because my father said, "If you want influence here, earn it." So I started in the warehouse. Steel-toe boots, shift rotations, night inventory audits. Ethan started in corporate strategy, glass office, travel budget, immediate title. When I proposed renegotiating our regional carrier contracts, Martin told me, "Stay focused on throughput. Leave structuring to us." I renegotiated anyway, quietly. Saved $2.8 million in 12 months. Ethan announced it as a cross-functional initiative. My name didn't appear in the press release. When I built the automated forecasting model that reduced spoilage by 14%, my father told me privately, "This is why we need you where you are." Where I was. Always where I was. By 33, my division was the only one consistently exceeding projections. We had the highest retention rate in the company. But whenever I asked to participate in acquisition strategy, I got variations of the same sentence. It's different at that level. It's political. It's not your lane. I learned to stop asking. I also learned to read contracts. After the boardroom meeting, word spread faster than the formal memo. "Is it true?" Julia asked, closing my office door behind her. "Yes." "You report to Ethan?" "Yes." "That's insane." "It's corporate," I corrected. She sat down without being invited. "What are you going to do?" "Work." "That's it?" "For now." She studied my face. "You're too calm." "I'm thinking." The official announcement came at noon. Effective immediately, all divisional strategy will consolidate under the Office of the President. The Office of the President. Ethan had just created that title for himself. My inbox filled with cautious messages. "Let us know how this affects us. Are we still moving forward with the Q4 expansion? Do we need Ethan's approval for vendor renewals?" I responded to each one. Business as usual. It wasn't defiance, it was accuracy. Because technically nothing had changed yet. Technically. The changes began subtly. Budget approvals that once took hours began taking days. Requests for minor capital expenditures were redirected. Run it by Ethan first. Strategic alignment required. I asked Ethan directly in the hallway one afternoon, "Do you want to sit in on our planning sessions?" He smiled. "No need. Just send summaries." "You're slowing us down." "I'm overseeing." "You're duplicating." He shrugged. "Get used to it." Martin started inviting my direct reports to meetings without me. I found out because one of them forwarded a calendar invite by mistake. "Did you mean to exclude me?" I asked Martin later. "It's exploratory," he said. "No need to crowd the room." "I built that room." "And we appreciate that," he replied, already looking past me. I documented everything. Not dramatically, not angrily, methodically. Emails forwarded to a private archive, meeting notes saved, approval delays timestamped. They thought it was micromanagement fatigue. It wasn't. It was evidence. But I didn't act. Not yet. They believed the worst was over. It wasn't. The annual leadership town hall was scheduled for late October. 300 employees in the ballroom of the Whitmore Hotel downtown. Ironic branding my father found tasteful. I almost didn't attend, but absence would have looked defensive. I took a seat at a front table with my senior managers. Ethan opened with projected revenue growth. Confident, polished, relaxed in a way that only comes from inherited authority. Halfway through, he shifted to organizational evolution. A slide appeared behind him, from silos to synergy. Under it, a simplified org chart. Logistics no longer stood alone. It branched under his name. A ripple moved through the room. Ethan gestured lightly toward my table. "Claire has done tremendous work operationally, no one disputes that, but growth requires a different skill set. And I don't have it." He smiled thinly. "It's not your lane." I looked at my father. He didn't contradict him. That was the moment. Not the demotion, not the power shift. The silence. I nodded once. Understood. But that wasn't the end of it. It was the beginning of something they didn't recognize. Not knowing when to cede defeat is weakness. Not knowing how to choose defeat is amateurish. The annual leadership town hall was scheduled for late October. 300 employees in the ballroom of the Whitmore Hotel downtown. Ironic branding my father found tasteful. I almost didn't attend, but absence would have looked defensive. I took a seat at a front table with my senior managers. Ethan opened with projected revenue growth. Confident, polished, relaxed in a way that only comes from inherited authority. Halfway through, he shifted to organizational evolution. A slide appeared behind him, from silos to synergy. Under it, a simplified org chart. Logistics no longer stood alone. It branched under his name. A ripple moved through the room. Ethan gestured lightly toward my table. "Claire has done tremendous work operationally, no one disputes that, but growth requires a different skill set. And I don't have it." He smiled thinly. "It's not your lane." I looked at my father. He didn't contradict him. That was the moment. Not the demotion, not the power shift. The silence. I nodded once. Understood. But that wasn't the end of it. It was the beginning of something they didn't recognize. Strategic silence is misread as surrender. I let them misread it. The next morning, I congratulated Ethan via email on his clarity of vision. I requested a formal timeline for integration. I copied legal. Martin responded with a short note. "We'll coordinate internally." Internally, meaning not with me. So I reached out to external counsel. Not loudly, not combatively, just to review governance. 5 years earlier, when restructuring vendor liability exposure, I'd insisted logistics operate as a wholly owned subsidiary with separate managing authority. My father had agreed, primarily to shield the parent company from risk. What he hadn't considered was how governance language could protect internal control. 2 managing members were listed in the operating agreement, Ethan and me. Any material change in management authority required unanimous written consent. Unanimous. No one had amended it because no one assumed I'd ever need it. I didn't inform anyone I was reviewing it. Instead, I allowed the integration memo to circulate. allowed managers to assume reporting lines were shifting, allowed Ethan to draft oversight frameworks. I attended meetings and nodded. I approved routine expenses. I said nothing publicly about legality. They thought the humiliation at the town hall had closed the matter. It hadn't even opened it fully. The formal board vote was scheduled for December. Ethan wanted it done before year-end. Clean start, he said during a planning session. I asked, "Is legal preparing documentation?" "Standard consolidation papers," Martin answered. "Send me a draft," I said. "We'll circulate after board review." "No," I replied, "before." A pause. Ethan smirked. "You don't trust us." "It's not about trust." "Then what is it about?" "Process." He rolled his eyes. I stayed quiet after that. But 2 weeks before the vote, I filed a formal notice invoking Section 8.3 of the subsidiary agreement. It was a request for independent valuation in anticipation of a potential change of control. It did not accuse. It did not threaten. It simply activated a clause. External auditors began reviewing 5 years of financials. They requested detailed documentation. I provided everything, on time, professionally. When Martin learned about it, he stormed into my office. "What did you do?" he demanded. I followed procedure. "You blindsided us." I sent notice. "You're escalating." You announced integration publicly. His jaw tightened. "You're overplaying this." Am I? He left without answering. The valuation report arrived 3 days before the board meeting. I read it alone. Then I closed my laptop and waited. The boardroom felt different this time, heavier. My nameplate was back in its original position. Ethan opened confidently. As previously discussed, consolidating logistics under centralized leadership improves efficiency. I'd like to add context. Martin sighed. "Claire." "Briefly." My father nodded reluctantly. I connected my laptop to the screen. First slide, independent valuation summary. A number appeared. Then another. Comparative metrics. Contribution to enterprise value. Projected growth curves. No theatric, just data. A board member leaned forward. 40%? 42, I corrected. "That's inflated." "It's audited." Silence spread slowly. I moved to the next slide. Under Section 8.3, I said calmly, "A material change in managerial control triggers a buyout option at fair market value." Martin flipped through his binder. "We're not transferring ownership. You're transferring authority. That's semantic. It's contractual." My father's voice was lower now. "What are you proposing?" "I'm not proposing. I'm clarifying." Ethan's confidence was thinning. "You wouldn't exercise the buyout." "I would." "And destabilize the company?" "I'd separate from it." That was the first time the room understood. Not retaliation, leverage. A board member asked carefully, "Is this clause enforceable?" "Yes," I answered. Unanimous consent was required for managerial authority restructuring. It was not obtained. Ethan turned to my father. "This is absurd." My father didn't respond immediately. He looked at a valuation figure again, then at me. "You planned this." I prepared. For what? A fight? For possibility. The room was quiet enough to hear paper shift. Martin finally spoke. "Triggering the buyout would require liquidity we don't have without divestiture." "Correct," I said. Which meant integration was no longer simple. It was expensive, risky. Board members began speaking more cautiously. Perhaps consolidation requires further review. Maintaining subsidiary independence may preserve value. Language changed, not because of emotion, because of math. Ethan's voice sharpened. "You're holding us hostage." "No," I said evenly. "I'm honoring governance." He stared at me like he was seeing me clearly for the first time, not as operational, not as quiet, as structural. The board called a recess. In the hallway, my father approached me alone. "Did you intend to walk away?" "Yes." "And compete?" "I'd operate independently." He studied me. "You'd fracture the company." "You fractured it first." He closed his eyes briefly. When we returned to the room, the tone was resolved. "We will defer integration," my father announced. "The subsidiary's governance will remain intact pending mutual agreement." No applause, just acknowledgement. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. The shift was visible. Afterwards, people expected celebration. There wasn't any. Julia came into my office and closed the door. "You just rewrote the power structure." "I know," I replied. "I enforced it." Ethan avoided me for a week. Then one evening he stopped by. "You would have taken the buyout," he said. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I misjudged you." "Yes." A faint smile. "You always were better with details." Details become leverage. He left without hostility, just recalibration. Months later, at another town hall, my father introduced divisions differently. Logistics remains a cornerstone of our strategic architecture. Claire's leadership ensures both execution and foresight. No jokes about lanes, no sideways references, just accuracy. After the event, he approached me quietly. "I should have asked before assuming," he said. "Yes." He exhaled. "You've always been deliberate." "I had to be." He nodded. "We didn't hug. We didn't dramatize. Respect doesn't need spectacle." They told me to stay in my lane, so I studied the boundaries. Then I reinforced them with contracts they signed and forgot. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the cost of underestimating me. And that was enough.